So recently we've covered some of the lower limb anatomy of the muscles and bones and a little bit of the connective tissue. And today I wanted to bring up a little bit of a reminder about some alignment work. So one of the instructions or some of the terms we hear for lower leg alignment is about shin loop and ankle loop and these loops, and there are other alignment things that are pretty common that are getting outside of just Anusara Yoga, loops and spirals. So today I wanted to add a little bit about ankle loop and shin loop. For one generality, the musculature that's going to tip the body mass or the weight slightly towards the back of this talus bone right here. In other words, it's going to try to move the base of the shin back. And when the base of the shin goes back, it's kind of the opposite of being up on something like a platform or a pump or a shoe that has really high heel support, like a high heel, or even a running shoe with a lock. It tends to shift the body mass and how it comes down into the talus, if you were here for that, tends to shift the shin slightly forward and down there. And if that persists a lot, the arch tends to collapse. And then if we were to look at how that translates up the leg, as this shifts the body mass slightly forward and the arch collapses, a lot of times we'll see a result that the knee will tend to hyperextend back. And the basic way to describe that is that as this part of the bone moves this direction, this part of the bone tends to go this direction. And this matches up with the collapse in the arch, the foot bed, and you could even say kind of a hyperextension of some of the structure in here as the base of the shin goes this way. And at the same time, the top of the shin tends to go this way. And so we'd get a collapse of your ankle loop and of your shin loop. And if the loop terms aren't that big of a deal for you, then keep it on like the hyperextension for now. As the top of the shin or the entire knee structure goes too far back, there's a collapse in the structure, and this can result in a lot of things. And as the arches collapse down and forward, and essentially the ankle starts to collapse with it, that would again be similar to a hyperextension depending on how we want to use that. And so the musculature that we've discussed lately for the foot bed helps to move the structure of the talus right back up, forcing that up, shortening the arch, which makes it easier for the base of the shin to have its movement go more back. In addition to that, we have some of the longer muscles that help to flex the toes back. That too also helps to shift the base of the shin back. So if you're around for some of the anatomy on that musculature that help to do the dorsiflexion of the foot, and even if we were to look at all of the flexors and extensors of the small bones and long bones of the foot and the ankle, all the ones that are going to be flexors are going to help move the base of the shin back, as well as the arch bed muscles that tend to move the arch higher, shift the position of the talus and the momentum of the forces going through the talus so that there's some energy flowing back up. When all that goes well, it doesn't guarantee that the knee stops hyperextending, but it at least makes it much easier for the knee to not default or collapse back. It is possible to have a collapsed foot bed or arch and have the knees not hyperextended either, but these tend to add to the ability for one structure to work well in a relationship to the other one. So for the shin loop, first you need a good ankle position, ankle structure, ankle loop. Preferably little to no collapse. And by the way, different people's arches are different than other folks, so don't expect for somebody with a low arch to all of a sudden develop a giant arch in order to perform this well. We just need enough support there so that we see the position and the function of the base of the shin, essentially not displacing forward and collapsing down. So then when we get into the shin loop, we start to talk about part of the calf and the soleus, and as they come down and connect to here, they also come back up, especially when we talk about your gastroc, and they come back up and attach all the way up over the condyles at the base of the shin, or at the base of the femur. And so as those muscles contract, they try to prevent the knee from hyperextending back. So anything that goes over this structure that tones is going to keep the joint work, the joint momentum going from back to shifting forward. In a lot of yoga poses, we just want the legs straight, but if we have a muscular imbalance or an imbalance of our body weight and mass being distributed, it will default towards hyperextension. If it defaulted to knee flexion and the muscles were relaxed, you topple over. So if the leg is straight, it oftentimes, given enough time, will default towards hyperextension, which can be, again, different degrees for different folks, and there's a longer explanation of why that hyperextension is a pretty important thing to try to avoid. The other part of the back of the knee is going to be part of your hamstrings. We went over some of that musculature before. They come down and kind of create this nice little coupling where you have the part of the calf muscles coming up from below, part of the hamstring coming from above down below, and as they work together, they help to keep this structure so that any joint momentum going back is met by equal force restraining or restricting that direction of the energy flow, body mass, or the joint movement. And those two working together, the whole back of the leg, and even some of the arch and footbed stuff, work together to hold this so that your energy goes up and down the leg, more so than collapsing back through the knee, or sometimes collapsing forward. Also the ankle structure collapsing and the footbed structure collapsing. So we have the footbed muscles, we have some of the flexor muscles for the toes helping with your ankle work. We have your calf muscles helping with some of your hyperextension of the knee, and we also have the hamstring muscles. And so all these together result in how we perform, muscularly, how we perform ankle loop. And we get the arch to lift and the energy to flow back through the base of the shin, and shin loop, where we apply forces and energy so that whatever momentum or mass pressing the knee in this direction is met by something, so that structurally we can have our body forces and masses traveling more up and down the leg rather than back through the knee, and on a rare occasion out through the front of the knee. Yeah, so there's some of the structure for ankle loop and shin loop. And make sure you watch those other reminder sections and study updates so that you can also have some of the specific muscles and some of the names of them and how that works even more. See you soon.